So we've got quite a packed agenda this morning, so I'll maybe just get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session on net zero chemical manufacturing, where we're going to be exploring unlocking the power of biotechnology to transform the UK chemical industry. I'm Lindsay Dunbar, and I'm one of the Senior Business Engagement Managers at the Industrial Biotechnology Innovation Centre, and I'm delighted to chair today's session. So I'm really looking forward to this morning. We've got some really great speakers lined up for you. So before we start, I thought I'd just give you a really quick overview of the agenda for today. We'll be together for approximately 2.5 hours, and I'll start off with a little bit of housekeeping. Then I'm going to talk around the Bioeconomy Cluster Builder project, who we are and what it is that we do. And then I'm also going to highlight a funding opportunity that we have available exclusively only for today's participants in the webinar. And then I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Caris McInnes from the Chemicals Industry Association, and she's going to give an introduction to her organisation. Then we're going to move on to today's speakers. Then we've got a bit of time for Q&A. And we've also got a Mentimeter poll for you. We're really keen to capture a bit more information as to who's in the audience. And we're also really keen to ask for your help to shape future Bioeconomy Cluster Builder events in the chemical sector. And then my colleague, Catherine Mort from Innovate UK KTN, she's going to be leading the Q&A session and our poll today. And then she's going to give a bit of an overview of the Sustainable Bio-Based Materials and Manufacturing Programme that's run by Innovate UK KTN. And that'll bring today's session to a close. So I'm just going to move on to a little bit of housekeeping. So this morning, we're all in a webinar format. So all of our participants are muted throughout the webinar. We're really encouraging questions for our speakers. So if you'd like to ask any questions of them, please do use the Q&A box. And if you've got any technical issues at all, just let us know through the chat box and our experts are on hand to help support you with that. And just to let you know that today's webinar is being recorded. So following on from today's session, you'll be sent a link of the recording along with any other relevant material in due course. So I'm just going to give a really quick overview of the Bioeconomy Cluster Builder project. It's a collaborative project between ourselves at the Industrial Biotechnology Innovation Centre and Innovate UK KTN. And we're really here to help raise awareness of the benefits and applications of industrial biotechnology, and also to connect people and resources to develop new and existing value chains. We're also really keen to encourage the utilisation of Scotland's bioresources. And I don't know how many of the participants will be aware of this, but ourselves at iBioIC, Zero Waste Scotland and Scottish Enterprise have actually mapped out Scotland's biomass availability. And iBioIC hosts this tool so we can produce reports for you based on any kind of queries that we receive. And the tool is in the process of being updated at the moment, so there'll be updated data available for that soon. A little bit about our BCB events to date. In total, we've delivered 31 events, and we've kind of done these across quite a wide range of sectors, including textiles, construction, agri-food, in some areas that you maybe wouldn't initially associate with industrial biotechnology. And we've also done some support sessions and things like carbon accounting and life cycle analysis. And also, just to make you aware, we've recorded all of our sessions previously, just like we are today. So if you're interested in watching any of them, then I've included a link to our Bioeconomy Cluster Builder website at the bottom of this slide, so you can check them out through our website. And we've done a bit of complementary activity as well. And a lot of our complementary activities have actually followed on from a lot of the events that we've held. So we've held things like roundtable discussions, and we've developed focus groups. We've also connected different parts of the supply chain and produced complementary biomass availability reports I mentioned just in the last slide there. We've also made connections. So for example, connecting consortia partners for funding bids, or maybe just those with similar research interests as well. And we've also attended a wide range of conferences to help raise the profile of the Bioeconomy Cluster Builder project and what it is that we offer. And a little bit about our engagement with the chemical industry. So we present annually at Chem UK in Birmingham, and we'll be there again in 2024. So I'm really hoping to see a lot of you there. And we also attend other relevant conferences, such as our annual conference, iBioIC, and a whole range of other ones too. And we've coordinated a lot of awareness raising campaigns in various topics, and we engage directly with companies and academia, so we can help you make connections as well. And we also engage with trade press, so if you've got any relevant news or projects you'd like highlighted, we can help support that. And we also work with trusted partners. So for example, today we're working with our partner CIA, which is the Chemicals Industry Association, and that's not to be confused with the Central Intelligence Agency. So just to summarise, here's some of the support we could give you through the Bioeconomy Cluster Builder project following on from today. So we can help develop challenge-based focus groups and roundtables for you. We have access to partner organisations and networks, including both our networks at iBioIC and Innovate UK KTN. We can also help identify feedstock supplies through the bioresource mapping tool. And we can signpost to different funding opportunities as well, which leads me quite nicely into my next slide, because I'm about to highlight a new funding opportunity that's become available. So ourselves at the Industrial Biotechnology Innovation Centre are delighted to announce a new call, and it's the Sustainable Chemical Manufacturing Fund. And we're offering up to £10,000 of grant funding per project. And it's a project between industry and academia, and it would have to be a Scottish higher education institute. And the reason for that is we're funded by the Scottish Funding Council, so our funding does have to flow through a Scottish academic. However, the project partner, the industry partner, doesn't have to be based in Scotland. And 50% of the projects must be match funded by industry, but this can be either cash or in kind. It doesn't matter either way. We're happy to accept both. And all of the projects must be completed and invoiced for by May 2024. And just to make you aware that this funding is only available to today's webinar participants, and it must be innovative and relative to chemicals manufacturing. So if you'd like to receive the call documentation, please do get in touch with our projects team, and I've included their email address just at the bottom of this slide, but I'll also send that to all the participants following on from today. So please do keep an eye out for upcoming events through the Bioeconomy Cluster Builder website and also through our LinkedIn as well. And if you're interested in engaging with our project, or if you're interested in today's funding call, also please do get in touch with us. So I'm now going to pass over to our wonderful guest speakers. And here's an overview of our presentations for today. And we're going to kick off with Caris McInnes, who's a sustainability executive at the Chemicals Industry Association, who's going to give us an introduction to CIA. Caris can't stick around for the Q&A session today, so if you've got any questions for her, please just put them into our Q&A box and we can send them over to Caris following on from this morning's session. So I'm going to stop sharing, Caris, and I'll let you share your screen.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. I'd just like to preface this by saying we are in our offices here, backed onto a building site, and it's been quiet until about 2 minutes ago. So please tell me if the noise gets a bit too much. But yes, as Lindsay said, my name is Caris McInnes. I'm the Sustainability Executive for the Chemical Industries Association, not Central Intelligence. We provide a voice to government for the UK chemical and pharmaceutical companies. My role encompasses everything from sustainable finance, reporting, chemical recycling, and the bioeconomy. So if we just start with a bit of an introduction to the Chemical Industries Association and the impact that chemistry has on our everyday lives. So we are a member organisation comprising over 250 chemical and pharmaceutical manufacturing sites across the UK. We work with and opposite government on legislative issues. So we help companies implement new regulations. We work with regulators to reduce the burdens. We advise members and manage the UK's Responsible Care Programme, which covers safety of employees and the wider public. And we also facilitate networking between members, which encourages best practice sharing. Our primary objective is to make the UK a competitive place for our members to trade from and invest in. And this is just a quick snapshot of the chemical industry. So we've got over 4,500 businesses, meaning that the UK provides over 500,000 jobs in the UK. So salaries are almost 50% higher than the economic average within the UK chemical industries. And the chemical industries enjoys over 21% of the UK's R&D spend. So here we just highlight where the chemical industry is located in the UK. So you've got Grangemouth in Scotland, Teesside in the northeast, Humber in Yorkshire, and Runcorn in the northwest. There are multiple benefits to co-locating industrial sites, which improves which includes improving efficiency, lowering costs, contributing to local economies, and promoting cross-sectoral industrial symbiosis and decarbonisation efforts. So how are these chemicals used? A large proportion of the chemicals we produce are exported. That being said, approximately 96% of manufactured goods rely on industrial chemical processes. These things include household products such as shampoos and perfumes, rubber and plastics that can be used, say, in car tires, agricultural products like fertilizers, and many, many more products. In regards to the chemicals we export, over 50% go to the EU 27, while the US is the single largest company that we export most chemicals to. Now, if we have a look at some of the current challenges, current and future challenges that are facing the chemical industries, there are 8 key influences and challenges which will impact the chemical industries. So the first one, we are operating in an increasingly volatile and complex geopolitical environment. We're also responding to global power shifts and the future price and availability of feedstocks. This has been exemplified over the past year or so, 2 years almost, in dealing with the ramifications of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. In a world of finite resources, there is a need to improve resource efficiency and management, including the plastic waste challenge in operations and customer service. We've also got number 4, transitioning to and enabling the low carbon economy, protecting and improving human health and the environment, remaining competitive and avoiding production leakage, embracing digitalization and artificial intelligence to promote efficiency and innovation. And finally, we need to be contributing to the global goals in the transition toward increased economic, environmental, and social sustainability. A few further challenges. So the global population is estimated to reach 10 billion people by 2050, with a growing middle class, meaning a greater demand for consumption, putting pressure on energy, water, food supplies. Global greenhouse gas emissions are actually yet to peak. So the IPCC, so it's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, warns that in order to stick to our 1.5 degrees Celsius warming target, global greenhouse gas emissions must peak before 2025 at the latest and be reduced by 43% by 2030, as well as seeing methane reduced about a third. Even adjusting our warming target to 2 degrees Celsius requires global greenhouse gas emissions to peak before 2025 at the latest and be reduced by a quarter by 2030. This deadline is approaching at a very alarming rate. Global resource consumption is around 1 billion tonnes, with the circularity of the global economy not matching this consumption. And projections show that many countries are not actually on track to meet the UN SDGs, having been heavily impacted by the pandemic. Indeed, the UN SDG 2022 report noted that almost 4 years of progress against reducing poverty had been erased by the pandemic. It has deepened a global learning crisis, with 147 million children missing over half of in-person instruction in 2020 to 2021, and seeing 24 million learners potentially never returning to school. It has also caused the first rise in between country income inequality in a generation. But we want to look at how this actually relates to the chemical industry. So the chemical industry is an example of an energy-intensive industry, and therefore energy supplies must increase to meet growing demand. In addition, a growing demand for manufactured goods, remember that 96% of which rely on chemical processes, will put more pressure on the chemical sector due to its pivotal role in the global supply chain. Many chemical processes contribute to the levels of greenhouse gas emission in our atmosphere. So dirty fuels are burnt to reach the high temperatures necessary for chemical reactions to take place. Therefore, to remain competitive and to protect the environment, innovation must take place. The chemical industry has historically relied upon these fossil fuels, which are a finite resource. Therefore, alternative feedstocks are also having to be sought. Nonetheless, this requires resource efficiency and circularity. And chemistry is actually a crucial component to fulfilling the UN SDGs, which I'll go into more detail in a little bit. So we conduct a quarterly business survey with our members to ensure that our priorities are aligned with members. And unsurprisingly, members responded saying that energy price increases, raw material shortages, and raw material price increases were the top 3 challenges that they face. So this graph here shows the day ahead price for UK gas and electricity, demonstrating how high prices got, but also how they've fallen back. Nonetheless, we still see that prices are high by historic standards. And also alongside gas and electricity, oil and carbon have also become increasingly expensive over the same time period. And in a very simple summary, during a time where the country faces a crisis in cost of living, we can see that falling demand plus elevated costs means that there's quite a tough outlook on the horizon. But let's look to where chemistry is actually making a difference in solving these challenges. And here we're going to focus on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So the UN SDGs, also known as the Global Goals, form part of the UN's Agenda 2030. They were adopted by the UN in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Nonetheless, these goals cannot be met with a quick fix. They require innovative thinking, and the role of the chemical sector is huge. So in the latter half of 2022, we at the CIA conducted a materiality assessment. And materiality refers to the sustainability priorities relevant to the activities of an organization and their significance to different stakeholders. So our materiality assessment took a random sample of our members' sustainability reports, including some of their own materiality assessments. It is important to note that not all material aspects will be relevant to each and every one of our members, given that there's such huge diversity inherent in the chemical sector. But we hoped to demonstrate an overview of our membership. So this materiality assessment was used to update our sustainability vision, which has been mapped onto the global goals, demonstrating where chemistry has an influence. As you can see, the intended sustainability trajectory of our chemistry using membership aligns closely to that of the UN SDGs, prioritizing innovation, clean energy, economic growth, resource efficiency, and climate action. I'm going to zoom into just the top half of our sustainability vision, providing examples of how chemistry is involved in sustainable growth and innovation and low carbon circular economy. So recent data collected by the International Energy Agency has shown that renewables combined with resurgent nuclear power will more than cover growth in the electricity demand between 2022 and 2025. So the use of chemistry is crucial in the production of wind turbines, batteries for electric vehicles, and the transition to greener fuels such as hydrogen. And this clearly relates to SDG 7, which is all about affordable and clean energy. The chemical sector also plays a significant role in recycling, especially overcoming the limitations of mechanical recycling through chemical recycling, which enables hard to recycle materials, including plastic, to join the circular economy. To handle the problem posed by high price and lack of virgin materials, the chemical industries have sought alternative feedstocks. For example, our 2022 Sustainability Award winner, who are Celtic Renewables, make everyday chemicals such as acetone and butane using a byproduct of whiskey. Chemistry is also at the heart of innovation, producing lightweight materials for goods that must be transported to help enable fuel efficiency and reduce emissions. And this directly relates to SDG 9, which is all about industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And I thought it'd be useful just to provide a real example of the work the chemical sector is doing to address the global goals. And this is one from one of our members, Johnson Matthey, who are producing sustainable aviation fuel, also known as SAF. So aviation is responsible for around 12% of all transport-related carbon dioxide emissions. However, using their expertise in PGM chemistry and catalysis, Johnson Matthey have designed clever ways to use sustainable aviation fuel from alternative feedstocks. Their FT cans technology uses materials such as synthesis gas made from household waste and turns it into synthetic crude oil, which can be upgraded by refiners into SAF. In January 2022, Johnson Matthey launched their Hycogen technology, which captures carbon dioxide from existing emissions or from the air and reacts it with their zero carbon green hydrogen to generate syngas that can be turned into SAF. The combination of these technologies creates an end-to-end low carbon process to make synthetic crude. As a result, Johnson Matthey are working to reduce emissions emanating from aviation while simultaneously diverting thousands of tons of waste from landfills every year. So just to conclude this brief presentation, it's key to highlight that chemistry is actually an enabling science. It is all around us and is involved in everything we do, everything we need, do, and interact with in our daily lives. The chemical using industries are one of the largest manufacturing sectors in the UK, and they make an incredibly wide range of products. There are many challenges that face the chemistry using industries, stemming from geopolitical tensions, global consumption patterns, and climate change. However, the industry is making a difference and has significant potential to provide solutions to society's most pressing challenges, including advancing progress towards the global goals. I'm sure Lindsay and her team will share around these slides at the end, but there are just some further resources there if anyone wants to access those. And yes, as I say, please get in touch with me if you have any questions or want to know anything more about the CIA and what we do here. And yes, thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, Karis. That was a fantastic overview of the chemicals industry and its challenges. And that was a great introduction to the Chemicals Industry Association and its members. So I think that set us up really nicely for the rest of the presentations today. So next up is Stephen Wallace, and he's a professor of chemical biotechnology at the University of Edinburgh. And Stephen's going to be talking around merging synthetic biology and synthetic chemistry this morning. So Stephen, I will stop sharing and then I'll pass over to yourself to present.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lindsay. Can you see my slides okay, Lindsay?
Perfect.
Great. It's just... Okay, great. So hi everyone. It's really wonderful actually to have the opportunity to talk at today's meeting on a topic that is really close to my heart. I'm Stephen Wallace, as Lindsay said. I'm a professor of chemical biotechnology at Edinburgh University. I'm also a card-carrying organic chemist, even though I'm currently based in a biology or biotechnology department currently. So I hope through my talk today, I can sort of present to you some of my feelings and sort of ideas around the future of the chemical industry in light of some of the advances that have happened in the field of synthetic biology over the past decades. And sort of maybe in so doing, maybe give you a couple of examples from our lab's research that I think atypify sort of the role that synthetic chemistry has in the future of this field. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think like maybe to start off with a general introduction, I think when we think about sort of manufacturing a small molecule chemical that has industrial value, historically, I think we've thought about doing this by one of two different ways. And that's traditionally been, I think, the synthetic chemistry approach, where we take typically, very cheap petrochemically derived starting materials often, and we sort of transform them into industrial small molecule products via a sequence of either catalytic reactions or sort of synthetic reagents enabled reactions using a sort of traditional chemical synthesis approach. And these manufacturing conditions often involve the use of organic solvents, quite extreme temperature and pressure ranges, and chemical reagents that they are themselves, quite hazardous and generate quite a lot of different wastes. In contrast to that, I think what synthetic biology offers us that's really exciting, and certainly to me as a synthetic chemist is quite enticing and quite elegant, is the opportunity to sort of genetically encode these same chemical synthesis pathways into a living microorganism. And to have that microorganism take very abundant and more sustainable starting materials and to process these into industrial products under very mild conditions, in single vessel fermentations using cellular-based reagents. And this has a really important sustainability consideration as well, because these starting materials that are available to microorganisms are typically, as I mentioned, much more sustainable, they're renewable, and they can often be even derived from waste materials, so enabling us to circularize, to create circular chemical processes in so doing. And obviously this has a benefit because it enables us to sort of defossilize existing chemical manufacturing routes, or to at least take small molecules that would be derived from fossil fuels and to avoid the sort of the unsustainable features of this approach, and to diminish emissions that result from that. And I just wanted to dwell for a little bit actually on this idea of circularizing waste. This is something that is really, you know, quite a central aspect of a lot of the work that we're doing in my research lab at the moment. And I think it's incredibly elegant and a really important sort of approach, because it achieves two incredibly important things. It first of all takes, you know, carbon that is embedded in current industrial waste streams that would otherwise be sent to landfill or incinerated. And it takes that carbon and it re-enters it back into the national chemical economy. And in so doing, creates new routes to products that would themselves otherwise be manufactured from diminishing fossil fuels by multi-step chemical synthesis. So it reduces waste and the sort of emissions that result from those disposal processes, and at the same time makes a product that would be otherwise made from a diminishing natural resource. So the benefits associated with this, I think, are really attractive and twofold, as I've just mentioned here. So when I sort of present this sort of work in various chemistry conferences, I always get asked the same question, and I thought it was maybe worth dwelling on that here in this slide. So I always get asked, you know, what does the future of chemical synthesis look like? Are we going to be simply fermenting every single molecule that we currently rely on industrially today? Or is there a role for synthetic chemistry in this future? And if so, you know, what does that role look like? In essence, what does the interface of synthetic biology and synthetic chemistry look like as we sort of advance towards industrial biotechnology becoming a much more prolific enabling platform for industrial chemical production? And, you know, there've been some really interesting articles, sort of opinion articles and debates that have been sort of, that have happened in the chemical literature over the past decades. And I've highlighted two quite important papers that I would encourage you to read if you're interested in sort of more of a perspective on what this, on this debate, and particularly this paper in Nature, which is over 10 years ago now, between two leaders in the field of synthetic chemistry and synthetic biology, about sort of how to navigate a future when both technologies are in essence competing against each other. And I've also put in, you know, some sort of statements that I often find in the metabolic engineering literature, and I think it's important to highlight these because they sort of they come up often, and they're in essence just not true. I think you can, this quote here, for example, says, you know, the field of metabolic engineering has advanced to the point that one can imagine producing nearly any organic molecule, even those that are not produced naturally in an engineered microorganism. And, you know, in any future, metabolic engineering will soon rival and potentially eclipse synthetic organic chemistry. And this really, like, enrages me when I read this in the literature quite often, because, you know, I have to get on my soapbox a little bit, because I really strongly believe that, you know, despite, you know, the really transformative, huge advances that we've had in synthetic biology over the past decade in particular, and, you know, the abilities that this gives us to manufacture chemicals in a more sustainable way, I really, really believe that synthetic biology cannot replace 150 years of innovation in synthetic chemistry. There's simply the chemical diversity that we have or rely on in the modern chemical industry simply cannot be accessed, using a purely synthetic biology approach. And it's been estimated that, you know, only about a third to maximum a half of the small molecules that we rely on currently today can be conceivably accessed using a synthetic biology approach to chemistry. And therefore, you know, when we either have to completely radically increase the diversity of targets that we can make using synthetic biology, or we have to start to think about what this interplay between synthetic biologists and synthetic chemists looks like in the future. And I really strongly believe that in any future, in any net zero future, any sort of conceivably net zero future, I think it's absolutely likely that the most ideal approach towards sort of defossilizing or creating more sustainable chemical manufacturing routes will inevitably involve the combined use of tools from both disciplines, and certainly involve increased communication and collaboration between synthetic biologists and synthetic chemists. And, you know, we've believed this for a number of years now and have published opinion articles in this area. I've highlighted two particular examples here. This current opinions in biotechnology paper that I wrote with my postdoc advisor, Emily Balskis at Harvard University, or this article here that we wrote more recently for the Royal Society of Chemistry. So please check these out if you want to hear a little bit more detail about our opinions on this as well. So to give you a bit more, I guess, actual science, you know, beyond I guess, more conceptual discussions that I've been talking about. The research that we do in Edinburgh in my lab, in essence, sits at the interface of synthetic biology and synthetic chemistry in the area of chemical biotechnology, where in essence, we take tools from either field and we apply them in the context of one another. So using synthetic biology tools and combining them with chemical catalysts to create sort of novel approaches to, dare I say, unnatural type chemicals. And where we take synthetic chemistry tools and we apply them in living microorganisms to create more sustainable approaches to chemical synthesis. So in essence, we use chemical tools for use in industrial biotechnology, and we use engineered microorganisms for use in sustainable chemistry. And I thought it was maybe worth giving you a couple of examples of ongoing work in my lab in this area. The first, when we start thinking about the use of engineered microbes for use in sustainable chemistry, the reaction that we're spending a lot of time looking at currently is hydrogenation chemistry. And, you know, chemical, specifically palladium catalyzed alkene hydrogenation. This is an incredibly important reaction in the modern chemical industry. It's been estimated that around 25% of all pharmaceutical manufacturing routes that are currently in operation contain at least one hydrogenation in their process chemistry routes. And, you know, this is a transformation that has historically, I would say, almost exclusively used petrochemically derived hydrogen gas to effect this transformation. And what we've done recently is we've engineered a strain of E. coli to take sugar or carbohydrates-based starting materials and to make hydrogen gas that we can then engage in alkene hydrogenation chemistry using this biocompatible palladium catalyst here. So in essence, taking sort of a petrochemical hydrogenation reaction that's done in organic solvents, typically using high pressures of petrochemical hydrogen gas, and we've transformed it, we think, into something that you can do under aqueous conditions in a simple microbial growth tube. And if you start to have a look at these cells as well, by transmission electron microscopy, you can see here that the palladium catalyst that we use for this hydrogenation chemistry sort of sits on the cell membrane quite happily, and engages with both substrates and hydrogen gas when it's produced by this living microbe. And hopefully this video will play on the right-hand side here. Yeah, great. So we can actually immobilize all of these processes into these hydrogel beads here. You can see the sort of darker colored one here contains engineered E. coli and a palladium catalyst that's simply producing hydrogen out of these beads here. And then you simply filter off these beads after your reaction when it's completed. So yeah, so we think by using excuse me, by using engineered or synthetic biology to produce more sustainable hydrogen gas, we can create quite interesting sustainable chemistry procedures by combining engineered biology with biocompatible palladium catalysts. Another example which of work we did around about 5 years ago now was combining styrene biosynthesis in E. coli with biocompatible iron-based catalysts here. You can see the iron catalyst here just simply floats on the top of this, this culture flask here. Where we simply feed E. coli glucose, it biosynthesizes styrene, and then this iron catalyst just sits again on the cell membrane and intercepts styrene to produce these cyclopropane-based small molecule products. And these compounds here are incredibly useful in pharmaceutical manufacture, and are used often in fragrance and flavorings manufacture as well. And importantly, you know, this was the first time that anyone had derived these sort of compounds from glucose or from sort of carbohydrate-based starting materials in a bioprocess that importantly cannot be achieved using purely biosynthesis in isolation or purely chemical synthesis in isolation. This is really exemplifies, you know, what you can achieve when you combine both synthetic biology and synthetic chemistry simultaneously. Just as a really recent example of some of the sort of other work that we have ongoing in this area, and we published this paper in Angewandte a couple of weeks ago, where we've been able to interface alpha methylation chemistry with metabolic butyraldehyde biosynthesis in bacteria, where we've taken an engineered strain of E. coli that can take glucose and process it via this de novo biosynthetic pathway to this aldehyde here. And then simply using phosphate that's present both in cells and in the microbial growth media in the presence of formaldehyde, we can introduce this alpha methylene functional group here into this metabolite. And by combining engineered biosynthesis with this sort of non-enzymatic chemocatalytic reaction here, we create a new route to this compound here, which importantly cannot be accessed using synthetic biology just by itself. So there are no known enzymes that can take you all the way to this compound here, and there are no chemical routes that enable you to take glucose and turn this and transform it into this molecule here. So again, it's a really nice example of what you can achieve by combining engineered metabolism with biocompatible chemical reactions such as this. And specifically for this example, what's quite interesting is it doesn't just give you a new route to an industrially important small molecule. When you engage chemical reactions with engineered metabolic pathways, you also increase flux through that pathway at the same time. So by modifying this end product from a metabolic pathway, you also increase the amount or sort of the productivity of this pathway in the forward direction. So by combining synthetic chemistry and synthetic biology in this way, you actually end up with a 20% increase in overall productivity from this pathway. So this isn't just, a method that you can use to access new compounds. It's a way that you can increase the productivity of bioprocesses towards these chemicals, which is, I think, quite interesting. And then finally, just as a last example, I thought it was worth highlighting this work here. We've been doing a lot of work in the last 5 years or so into designing new routes using synthetic biology to access this compound here. This is adipic acid. It's probably one of the most simple compounds I've ever worked on in my career, but it's at the same time arguably probably the most important. It's a simple 1,6-diacid that's used currently in the manufacture of nylon for use in materials manufacture, including clothing. It's exclusively, the routes towards this compound are sort of chemical synthesis derived and exclusively use fossil fuel-based starting materials currently. And these manufacturing routes are really prolific emitters of nitrous oxide, which is a greenhouse gas that's around 200 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And it's been thought or it's been sort of shown over the last decade that the nitrous oxide emissions that come from this process contribute around about 10% of all human-associated industrial nitrous oxide emissions worldwide. So there's a huge environmental driver towards making more sustainable methods or routes towards the synthesis of adipic acids, which, for important reasons as I've just mentioned. So biotechnologists have been really engaged in developing these sort of processes over the past decades, and the contribution that we've been making to this field is pathways towards adipic acids from waste-based starting materials. So I've given you an example here of guaiacol, which is the major depolymerized product of lignin, and lignin is an incredibly sustainable biopolymer that's produced in huge amounts as waste every single year. It's largely thought of to be one of the most untapped sources of carbon on Earth currently. And using a synthetic biology approach in E. coli, what we've been able to show is that you can take guaiacol from lignin-based waste and process this into adipic acid. Using this simple sort of single plasmid system with all of these enzymes encoded. And we published this a couple of years ago in ACS Synthetic Biology as sort of the first time sort of reporting the first synthesis of adipic acid from this lignin-derived small molecule in productivities that at the time were pretty decent, around 60%, but we've since been working quite a lot on this pathway, and we have these conversions up to in excess of 90% conversion now. And we were engaged with a number of different companies in sort of this endeavor. And we were really fortunate 2 years ago to be awarded an EPSRC Sustainable Manufacturing grant to sort of accelerate the development of microbial bioprocesses to adipic acid from waste up the TRL levels, effectively, to try and assess this as potentially a future industrial bioprocess. And one real advantage really of doing this, I think, in an engineered microorganism, as you can see from this graph at the bottom here, is the byproducts that you get from this initial, from this processor is formaldehyde. And by doing this in a living cell, this is completely remediated. You can see here in the presence of the entire sort of engineered pathway, you see no formaldehyde produced at all. So this is detoxified in E. coli by native mechanisms. So going from glycol to adipic acid in the system effectively generates no byproducts. So this is an incredibly clean process. Yeah, that doesn't create any side products at all. I'd also direct you to this paper here. This was just accepted for publication 2 days ago and will be online in, I reckon, the next week or so, where we've actually extended the pathway to adipic acids to encompass not just the use of guaiacol from lignin waste, but the use of polyethylene terephthalate waste. So we can take waste plastic bottles and process them in vivo to adipic acids. Yeah, and we're incredibly excited about this work, actually. I'd encourage you to read this paper when it comes out in the next couple of weeks. So that's pretty much all from me today. Hopefully I've given you sort of an idea of my thoughts about, you know, how sort of sustainable chemical manufacture may, you know, be impacted both by synthetic biology, and how sort of the interface of biology and chemistry sort of will exist in the future, and sort of giving you some specific examples of the work that we're doing in this area. I have to thank the amazing group of scientists I get to work with every single day. This is my group currently. I have to thank all of these people for funding. iBioIC and KTN specifically have been amazingly supportive of our lab's work. I've given you some more sort of general sort of articles that have been written about some of the work that we published in the last couple of years. And I was really fortunate to be able to record a TED Talk on sort of chemical biotechnology and sustainable chemistry last year in Vienna. This is now on YouTube, so I can sort of direct you towards this if you want to learn a little bit more about the field in general. So yeah, thanks. I'll be happy to take any questions at the end.
Thanks very much for your overview there, Stephen. That was a really great overview of the synergy between synthetic chemistry and synthetic biology and the important role it plays in manufacturing. And I really look forward to reading some of the papers you suggested in Nature and Angevanta, and your upcoming paper as well. And also, as a chemist, I must say I agree that synthetic biology can't replace 150 years of synthetic chemistry development, in my opinion, either. And I really liked your case study on bioadipic acid there. That was a great overview of the art of the possible. So we're now going to be moving on to our next speaker, and we're going to be moving over into industry's view on net zero chemical manufacturing. And I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, who's Tim Davies, and he's a bioprocess science and technology lead at Corteva Agriscience. And today he's going to be talking around delivering sustainable innovations from product development to market. So I will stop sharing my screen, Tim, and I will pass over to you to present.
Thank you. See. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Good. Well, thanks. I'd really appreciate Lindsay and the group at iBioC and KTN for inviting me to speak and give a little bit of background of what we're doing at Corteva Agriscience in this area. So I'm going to be talking about delivering sustainable innovations from product development through market. So for us, we see sustainability is impacting every stage of what we do. And where a lot of the work I've done in the past in industrial biotechnology, we really look at sort of cradle to gate at the plant of how sustainability impacts, and then we assume that the products that go out to market are having an equivalent sustainability impact to maybe chemical alternatives. In the ag space, the products that we make, the chemicals that we make, are going out into fields, and they have an impact once they're in the fields as well. So we really have to look at all the way through that that product cycle. So a little bit about Corteva first, as we're maybe not as well known as we might be. We are a pure play agri-science business. Everything we do is in the agri-science field. Really what we're looking at doing as a company is taking on some really big challenges that are impacted by agri-science. So we're really looking at reinventing the future of farming. Farming has a lot of challenges. It has an impact on the environment, and it can impact the environment itself. So we're looking at really how we can make farming better for the future. We're looking at preserving the livelihood of farmers for generations to come. It's often mentioned that a farmer in their lifetime essentially has about 30 harvests on the farm before they pass it on to somebody else. But farms often are passed on through families. And so it's very important to us that we're supporting farmers and providing products that are going to help farmers create value and keep value in the land for the future. But also we're reaching out to the consumer as well, so that that gap or bridge between the farmer and the consumer. We're all consumers of agricultural output, every single one of us on the planet, and it's important that those links are strong, and that farmers are providing what consumers need, that we're providing farmers with the tools that satisfy what consumers need. And then last but not least, especially with respect to this webinar today, is commitment to sustainability. And as I said, that really underpins everything that we do. So who are Corteva? We're quite a new company, around about 4 years old, slightly more than 4 years old, but we have a very long heritage. So Corteva was formed through the merger about 7 years ago now, I think, between Dow and DuPont, which are obviously two very large chemical companies that most people recognize the names of. DuPont had a few years before merged with Pioneer Seeds, and so the heritage of Corteva really is Dow Chemical, DuPont, and Pioneer Seeds. And when those companies merged, all of the agri-science components of the three companies were pooled into one area and spun out as Corteva, which is a separately listed company and fully independent from those parent companies now. So although we're only 4 years old, we have a heritage of way more than a century. We have currently, this is actually slightly out of date, this slide, probably about 23,000 employees now within the company. We're based here in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the sort of heartland of the USA, so close to where a lot of our crops are grown in the US. We have research facilities in 150 plus different sites around the world. But the two main research sites are here in Indianapolis, where we have our crop protection research and development center, which is where I'm based. And then here in Iowa, we have our seeds R&D center. But then across the world, we have a number of centers for field trials, for growth trials, things like that. We have over 100 different production and manufacturing facilities globally. Within crop protection, we have over 65 different active ingredients that we produce. Impact more than 100 different crops, and we have more than 10 million customers globally. So yeah, we have a very large footprint and a sort of global reach. As I said, this is slightly out of date. This big blue block has gone now. We don't have any operations in Russia anymore due to the issues over the past few years. So so there's a much bigger grey block there, but most of the facts here are still pretty relevant. And so it's a pivotal time for agriculture, as we all know. Karis mentioned at the top some of the factors, but population is growing, so the global demand for food continues to grow, not just the volume, but also the quality. Farmers have a lot more threats to their crops. Climate change is one of the factors there. It's not the only factor. You know, as we grow and have to use more marginal land, there are impacts there. But certainly climate change is having an impact. It affects, you know, water supply, too much or too little. You know, in the past, this summer, we've talked about fires, we've talked about droughts, and we've talked about floods. So, you know, there's huge impact there. Also, rising temperatures mean that insect profiles, for example, change. Other diseases of crops will change. And society is expecting more from agriculture. So it's not enough just to produce the products that society needs. There's quality aspects, there's management of the environment becomes more and more important to consumers. And farmers need to react to those. And as agri-science businesses, we need to provide solutions to farmers that meet those needs that they have. And so at Corteva, we really do look at everything through a sustainability lens, essentially. And we're committed, we made a commitment several years ago that all of our newly developed active ingredients in our crop protection pipeline, that they would meet sustainability criteria that we'd set by 2025. And so what are those criteria? How do we look at those? So going back to the UN wheel on sustainability, there are a lot of ways, obviously, that the ag science business interacts with this and that we can have an impact. So starting at the top here, zero hunger. Obviously, ag science has a lot of a big place to play here. We're looking to make sure that our products allow increased access to safe, nutritious, sufficient food. And crop protection, that's key, right? That's what crop protection is for, is to ensure that the land that's planted produces high yields of high quality material. Supporting genetic diversity of seeds and cultivated plants. You know, there are concerns over monocultures, and we look to have an impact here where we can. And then a key part here is improve resilience of agricultural production. And crop protection, similar to pharmaceutical industry, has issues with resistance, for example. So it's very important to us that we're looking for novel or underutilized modes of action in markets, not just same again sorts of products, so that we can ensure that there are a range of different ways to control pests or diseases in crops, so that we can use rotation, not necessarily with our own products, but rotation with our farmers have the ability to rotate with products from other companies, and we can avoid getting resistance or slow down getting resistance in crops. Around clean water and sanitation, one of the key things here on water quality is to ensure that our active ingredients don't have any risk in groundwater, and that that persistence in groundwater is very low. So this is a very key benchmark for us. Moving down to consumption and production, around waste, our targets for new active ingredients are that their use rate is much lower. So the amount of chemicals added to get the same impact is much lower. And as we go through some of the slides, you'll see that we've had some really good success in this area. If our crop protection actives work well, then we end up with reduced food waste because there's less crop going bad in the fields. Using safer materials in manufacturing, we have very much a focus within our chemistry research of green chemistry, using lower impact raw materials or starting materials, using lower impact catalysts and solvents. So that's a huge piece of what we do. And then around sustainably sourced materials, I'll talk a little bit later in this talk about the use of bioprocessing. That's my background. I've been working in fermentation bioprocessing for 30 years. But the company is using bioprocessing more for producing active ingredients. And on the chemistry side, we're putting a lot more effort into biocatalysis and bioprocessing to get to active ingredients as well. And that allows us to use potentially more sustainable feedstocks, more sustainable solvents, often aqueous, for producing materials. So we're moving a lot in that direction too. And then around the life on land, so we're looking at developing actives that have less environmental persistence. That relates to the water as well, but both on land and water, we're looking at molecules that are less persistent, and looking at products that obviously have a far better risk profile to non-target organisms. So we have a very large bee-friendly initiative, but essentially we want to improve crop yields through reducing the prevalence and the impact of pests and diseases to the crops, but have as little impact as possible on non-target, which obviously is a challenge. But again, we're making some good strides there. Looking then at taking those development goals, putting them in a different way of looking at the table, and a list of some of our new crop protection products that are in our pipeline and just coming to market. We're doing pretty well against a lot of those targets. So if you look here at improved or using novel or underutilized modes of action, most of the products that we have coming to market at the moment and coming into our product meet this target. That's a crucial one for us. Around water quality, being better than existing products on the market. Again, most of these products have an impact or reduced impact on water courses. And again, one of the things that we're really focusing on is this reduced application rates. And the reduced application rates has an impact across a lot of these columns. But most of the products that we have reduced application rates. And I'll cover that a little bit more as we go forward. Around natural products, sustainability, the one on this list is Innotrek, which is an antifungal product that I'll talk a little bit more about. That's a natural product made by fermentation with then one final synthetic chemistry step at the end. So that ticks this box. The rest of these are made using traditional chemistry, although maybe greener than in the past. So they don't tick the natural product box, but we have a lot more products that we're looking at bringing through that will do this, and that, as I said, use biocatalysis, biotransformations to improve that sustainability. And then we're looking at formulation as well to provide improvements. We have good record with our new products around reduced environmental persistence, and also where the product has reduced risk against non-target organisms. So we're doing pretty well against our sustainability criteria, and we're pretty happy with that. We do regularly stop work on, de-emphasize at quite an early stage products that don't meet these capabilities. So the fact that our products that are coming to market do well on this is not coincidence. It's because that molecules that don't do well against these criteria really don't get advanced and don't make it through our pipeline. So just for a couple of case studies, couple of examples. First one, Rinscore, which has just been launched in a number of markets. This is a herbicide, and herbicides are an area where a lot of traditional existing herbicides are being deregulated, and so yeah, there is a real demand from farmers for new herbicides with better profiles. Rinscore we're really happy with. It has a low use rate compared to some of the traditional herbicides. The formulation has a high proportion of green solvents, which makes it better out in the environment. Has a best-in-class regulatory profile, so the regulatory bodies really like what we've brought to the market. It's been exempted from certain tolerances because of the environmental toxicological profile, so it has preferred use. And it's been designated as a reduced risk pesticide in rice and aquatics, which is good for our markets. Compared to the existing products on the markets, it's going to have an impact over the next few years of a significant reduction in CO2 emissions, significant improvement in environmental load. And this is a nice graphic here, which shows you the impact of application. So where some of the traditional chemicals that are used as herbicides right now need kilos to high hundreds of grams of material per hectare application. For Rinscore, we're down in the sort of 10 to 30 gram range, and these photographs here show Rinscore at 30 grams AI per hectare compared to untreated, and you can see the impact that's having there. So that's one product that we're really, really happy about. Another one is Reclamel. So Reclamel is a nematicide, so it impacts nematode pathogens of plants. And this actually, we just made an announcement yesterday that Reclamel has been approved for use in the US and Mexico. It was previously available just in Australia and Canada, but is now available in US and Mexico. So it'll be available to farmers for the next growing season there. And we expect registration in Europe and other places around the world pretty soon as well. So we're excited about that. Reclamel is a unique mode of action. So again, it should reduce the impact of pathogens getting resistance, compatible with soil health management programs, low impact on non-target organisms, and it's been designated as a reduced risk pesticide. And we're seeing very rapid regulatory approval across a lot of geographies because it's being recognized by regulatory bodies as a really good step forward for sustainability and for environmental impacts compared to existing nematicides. Again, we're going to have an increase or a positive impact on GHGs. And again, you can see here the use rate is significantly lower. So the chemical load is going to be significantly lower than competitor products on the market. Then moving to some more bio-based. So earlier this year, Corteva acquired two biologicals companies, Symborg, which is a Spanish-based SME, and Stolo, which is a US-based but global company that were large biologicals companies. So we're now around probably the number one biologicals ag business in the world. One of the products we're really excited about is Utrisha N. This is a live microbe, which assists nitrogen supplementation into the plant. So nitrogen supplementation by microbes in plants is has a long history, mostly with legumes, things like soy, where you have rhizobia and organisms that colonize the root of the plant and help the plant fix nitrogen. But that only works with plants that genetically are able to do that. The organism that we have here colonizes the plant slightly differently. It's sprayed onto the foliar part of the plant. It migrates through the plant in through the stomata, and it helps the plant with the nitrogen metabolism from the leaves. And so potentially it can be used in a much wider range of plants. So it enhances nitrogen use efficiency, increases yields of crops. So we're pretty excited about this. Obviously, as a live microbe, it's produced by fermentation, so the production has some pretty good sustainability profiles, and we're pretty excited about that. We're currently working. I'm personally working with a colleague on this at the moment to do a full life cycle analysis. We don't have that data yet, but we know that there are benefits, but we don't have the numbers that we can share yet. But hopefully soon we'll be able to share with our customers and the community what the full LCA benefits are of Utrisha. Spinosins, again, are made by fermentation. These are insecticides that have actually been on the market for more than 20 years. They're one of our biggest products. And spinosins essentially are analogous to antibiotics. So they're made by actinomycete microorganisms by fermentation. Colcova is the true natural product that's made by the bacteria, then purified. Because it's a natural product, it qualifies as an organic material. So it's one of the few insecticides that are available to organic farmers. And I've personally spoken to farmers of organic orchards in Canada and different places where without Colcova, they really wouldn't be able to produce. So that's a cool attribute. Gemvelva is a very closely related molecule that then has one synthetic step at the end of the process, which improves the profile. So Gemvelva is actually the better product, but because it has a synthetic step, it's not available for organic use. So we have Gemvelva for the larger conventional market, Colcova for the organic market. Spinosins have won 6 Green Chemistry Awards over the past 30 years. And despite being on the market for a long time, are still a really important part of our portfolio, and still have very low resistance profiles. And so as a natural product, we're very proud of the Spinosins program. Another natural product is Inatrek, which is also made by fermentation by filamentous bacteria. Again, Inatrek, like Gemvelva, has one synthetic step at the end of the process. This is a product that's marketed extensively in the UK. It's used to control septoria fungal attack on wheat primarily. So it's used in the wheat market in the UK and elsewhere around the world. In addition to the products themselves and the manufacturing processes, we're also looking at reducing or improving sustainability by using less crop protection products, so only using them where and when they're needed. So we really have a lot of programs using things like digital, machine learning, artificial intelligence, imaging, climatology, to use our digital ag part of the business to help farmers identify where products need to be applied and where they'll have the biggest impact, and even changing use rates within fields to impact where we have them. So one of the systems we have can predict where nematodes are going to be present, and so farmers can target just those areas. And using things like drone technology, GPS, and various other methods, we can really identify and apply crop protection solutions exactly where they're needed and where they're going to have the biggest impact. And that, rather than maybe 40 years ago, where you'd have a plane flying over a field and just dumping chemicals everywhere and being blown around, has a huge impact. Also within our formulations, you can see here, this is with Innotrek. You can see the formulation has an impact on where things land on the leaf. Here you can see our formulated product landing on the leaf and sticking there, whereas a non-formulated product just bounces off. And this sort of mixing out on the leaf against a regular drop. So using this formulation technology and improved application to crops, you can really reduce the amount of material needed. So using this IQ4 technology that we've developed for the Innotrek, we've been able to really halve the amount of active ingredient that is needed per hectare with the same impact. And from this chart here, you can see that there's a lot more recovery in the leaf with this new product. So again, I just want to get across that piece that it's everything from discovery all the way through to application in the field, through manufacturing, that gives us the full sustainability impact that we can have. So how do we ensure that we continue to drive sustainable innovation and outcomes? Well, it is really that emphasis on every stage, from predictive tools and assessments before we even start the discovery process, enabling technologies in manufacturing and in application, and having metrics and testing at every stage. So our process starts down here with discovery, go through stage 0 and proof of concept, pre-development, development, pre-launch, launch, ramp up. At every stage, we're looking at those sustainability criteria, and we're looking across the product itself, the packaging, the manufacturing, distribution, how the farmer is using it, and how the farmer is then disposing of those products. Every one of those steps are important to us. And it's really embedding into that the big picture of what does sustainable innovation mean globally and how we can do that. So low use rates, new modes of actions, getting through education of the farmer and consumer is critical as well. So all those things I've spoken about through the product. And then building the pipeline from the very beginning. So our chemists, our discovery biologists are from the very early stages looking for products that are going to meet the criteria that we have. So we don't want to waste time it takes about 10 years to get a product to market. We don't want to waste time getting to the end stage and deciding it's not going to be good enough. So really starting from that very, very beginning stage. And these are some of the tools that we use. So we use green chemistry principles. So we're looking at the performance, at innovation, at waste, at status. And you can see an example here that as you go from first generation, second generation, third generation of a development of a molecule, that we're pushing in a good direction on these, that we start off maybe with not an ideal product, but by the end, we have a product that has less waste, that meets these green chemistry criteria. And that has both the financial impact. So for us, obviously, if we have low use, for example, we need to make less, we have less waste. So it improves our financial impact as well, but it also has that impact on the crops. And so just finally, I want to summarize and thank you again for your time. Corteva has really been committed to sustainability for many years. Our parent companies were as well, but when Corteva was formed 4 years ago, sustainability was really put into the company as one of our absolute core commitments to the industry. Through a paradigm shift, we've been able to instill and embed those attributes into our R&D program and through into manufacturing and through into the product. And at the moment, 90% of our new products meet our sustainable innovation criteria. By 2025, that's going to be 100%. And as I said, if products don't meet those criteria, we don't try and shoehorn them in. Essentially, they're dropped, and we look for solutions that do meet those. And obviously, we're a large company. The work that I've talked about here has been performed by a number of my colleagues. And so I'd like to thank them for the work that they've done. And thank you today for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tim. That was a great overview of Corteva and its sustainability drivers. And it was really great to get your perspective on the challenges faced by agriculture and also the manufacturing of agrochemicals. And it was fantastic to learn a little bit more about your selection criteria for bringing your products to market as well. And I really enjoyed all your case studies, and particularly Utrisha N and its mode of action on crops. So next, we're going to move on to our next presenter, who is Josie Lefebvre, and she's Head of New Product Development at Thomas Swan. And Josie's going to be talking to us about towards net zero chemical manufacturing and the role of biotechnology from the perspective of an SME. So I'm going to pass over to you, Josie, to present.
Thanks, Lindsay, and thanks to the rest of the team as well for giving me the opportunity to present today. So I'll just get my slides. Is that sharing?
Yep.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, as Lindsay said, I'm Josie Lefebvre. I'm the Head of New Product Development for our Green Feather Innovations team within Thomas Swan. I'm going to talk to you today about an overview of who Thomas Swan is, what sustainability means to us. I'll then give you a brief run through of our carbon net zero targets and where we are along that journey with the help of biotechnology. So who's Thomas Swan, or who are Thomas Swan? We are a chemical manufacturer based in Consett in the northeast of England, near Newcastle. We've been manufacturing chemicals for nearly 100 years. Our centenary year will be 2026. We have 3 main offices now in the UK, USA and China, with growth expansion plans. We have around 170 employees, so we fall into the SME category at the moment. We have a clear business purpose and a focus on sustainability, and our long-term vision is to break out of the SME bracket and become a medium-sized, pioneering, globally recognised sustainable manufacturer of specialty chemicals. You could just see from the images there, that's our site in lovely Consett. And we have modern manufacturing facilities, such as our Keystone site just on the right-hand side there. So we are still an independent family-owned business. You can kind of see the 4 generations of the Swan family there. And the bottom right-hand side is Harry, who's our current CEO and owner. Being independent and family-owned means that we have the ability to be flexible, innovative, and do things differently. We're kind of not tied by corporate principles, and we're able to be a little bit different to some other chemical manufacturers out there. We started in Tarmacadam back in 1926, which came from local iron ore waste. So you could argue that we had credentials in sustainability right from the start. But over the years, we've expanded into multiple different markets, from a core in chemical manufacturing to dabbling in things like photonics, protein separation, hydrogen storage, and more recently nanomaterials as well. But our bread and butter is kind of chemical, standard synthetic chemical manufacturing. So just a little bit more information about the markets we operate in. Our Performance Chemicals division operates today across a number of different markets, as I said, such as tire and rubber, coatings, inks, leather treatment and fungicides, and consumer actives. Sitting alongside Performance Chemicals is our newly formed Green Feather Innovations Group, otherwise known as GFI, which I'm the head of. Green Feather Innovations, the purpose of us is to assist the business in achieving sustainability and growth goals. Part of this is the transformation from traditional fossil fuel-based feedstocks to more sustainable, renewable and recycled alternatives. You could see the bottom there, quotation from Harry himself. We have responsibility in today's world to create a positive impact in society on the environment. And if we're in position to affect that change, why wouldn't we? We want to be seen as a sustainable chemicals manufacturer, and we feel we have that responsibility on our backs to make that become true. We also recognise that to be innovative, we need to be both innovative in science, which leads to product development, but we also need to be innovative in how we run the business as well. And going forward, we will be looking at doing things differently to what we've done for the last 100 years. So what does sustainability mean to Thomas Swan? It's a term that people can use differently and means different things to different people. For us, sustainability is the key driving force for the long-term future. And it means three things. We need to be successful for the long term as a business. We need to operate in such a way that means that we'll be around for the next 100 years. We need to minimise the impact of our operations on the planet, and we need to look after our people and the community. We need to ultimately be a company that has a positive impact on our environment. So moving on to carbon net zero now, we've set ourselves an ambitious target for 2030 to be completely carbon net zero. We have measured our carbon footprint with a carbon trust, which will be updated on an annual basis, so we know what our starting position is. We have existing initiatives which will continue on an annual basis, and where applicable, this will be linked to the carbon net zero target. We recognise that alongside those existing initiatives, that we have to have a strategy to develop new products in such a way that leads us towards carbon net zero rather than away from it. And we need to consider infrastructure, process and product mix. No single one of these will allow us to achieve our targets alone. So when we had our carbon footprint measured in 2019, we had just over 5,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions, which is mainly Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. And this is just for the site at Consett. We've looked at putting several initiatives in place, such as replacing and upgrading lagging, which also has a safety, health and environment benefit. Replacing old technologies for new energy efficient technologies such as old stirrer motors and variable speed drives rather than the old technologies that we had in place. And one of the other things that's had an impact as well has been looking at our product mix. So where we can switch manufacture to products which have a better carbon dioxide impact, we have been looking at what we can do to produce more of those products, both of the existing products and helping to produce new products which have that same better carbon footprint. So looking at the graph there, you can see that since we first had our carbon footprint measured in 2019, our carbon emissions have decreased, but that's with the volume of products either being the same or increasing over that time period. So the initiatives that we are putting in place are clearly having an impact. That doesn't get us all of the way though, so we know that we have to do other things to help us move towards that 2030 goal. And this is where biotechnology comes in. In 2019, an anaerobic digestion plant was commissioned and built on our land just around the corner behind me. That was owned and operated by a third party until early this year when we purchased that and brought that in-house ourselves. It's a combined heat and power plant. It takes biomass source within a 10-mile radius of Consett, mainly maize and grass silage, which is fermented. We produce biogas, which is then used in turn to generate electricity. It's capable of supplying 100% of our electricity requirements, and we're also upgrading the site as well so that we can produce our full biogas requirements for use on the site. Waste heat is also used to preheat water for steam generation, which is used in manufacturing processes as well. Currently, the waste digestate is collected and spread back onto the same farmers' fields. So we are using that digestate in a responsible manner. Any carbon emissions from the plant at the moment are neutral because they are being reabsorbed and resequestered into the crops nearby, which are then harvested and brought back for use in the next round of digestion. So we see this as a good example of a biochemical process facilitating decarbonisation in chemical manufacturing. But we still have challenges. We know that as we move more towards using this plant for production in biogas, that the digestate volumes will increase as well. We need to have a look at options for taking this digestate and what can we do that's better. Can we turn that into a value stream and produce other materials which help to either increase our revenues or help to take carbon out of the environment? We have 16 potential applications which we are investigating at the moment, which can be found following that link there. For our existing products, we know that, as we said, going forwards, that our product mix will be essential for moving towards that carbon net zero target. But we also know that we can make better use of naturally derived raw materials which are out there. We're looking at waste streams and how we can convert those into new products going forwards. We also recognise that we need to step away from traditional synthetic chemistry and look at combinations with new technologies such as fermentation and how we can use things like artificial intelligence and machine learning to guide new candidate selection. That helps us to be more efficient and make better use of the resources that we have at the moment. So in summary, we know that it's challenging to develop solutions for sustainable chemical manufacturing, but we know that we have routes to be able to achieve that. We know we need to be innovative and embrace the knowledge and skills from a number of different disciplines away from traditional chemistry. So using biotechnology, artificial intelligence, machine learning alongside more traditional chemical engineering and chemistry, which helps to meet future needs whilst minimising environmental impact. We recognise that going forwards, that solutions we develop need to be consistent with this UN Sustainability Development Guidelines. And although we know that there will be revolutionary opportunities out there, we also need to be a bit more sensible and look for evolutionary improvements as well along the way to hitting those revolutionary endpoints. So thank you very much for your time, and I will hand back to Lindsay.
Thanks very much, Josie. It was really interesting to hear a little bit more about Thomas Swan and how being a family-owned business is quite unique in your perspective as well as an SME. And it was also great to hear about the fantastic sustainability work that Greenfeather Innovations is working on, and also what sustainability means to you, and as well about your carbon net zero targets by 2030. I can imagine that's quite challenging work, and how you're achieving these goals through your anaerobic digestion plant and also your new product development. So that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you. And we're moving on to our final presenter for today, and that's Darren Budd. And Darren's Commercial Director for UK and Ireland for BASF. And Darren's going to be talking to us about biotechnology and his perspective as a global chemicals manufacturer. So I will pass over to you, Darren.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'll try and get my slides up now. So hopefully this will come up.
Perfect.
Can you see that? In the present, is it in the presentation mode? Can you see that?
No, not in presentation mode.
Oh, yeah, that should be now. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So welcome everyone. Yeah, and as Lindsay said, I'm Darren Budd. I'm Commercial Director for BASF UK and Ireland. And really I want to give an overview of what from a global chemical manufacturer perspective and where biotechnology sits for us, what we're doing with net zero. And you see this first picture is of our site in Germany. It's our biggest industrial complex. On the left-hand side, you'll see the Rhine, and this bottom part down on the bottom left is the harbour. And this is where we bring in a lot of our raw materials into here. And everything you see stretching up is the manufacturing site in Ludwigshafen, and that's 10 square kilometres of production site. So just a bit about BASF, first of all, where we sit, where our products are, where we're going into, and then a bit about where our net zero challenge is and how biotechnology and engineering biotechnology is playing a role in this. So we are, as I said, we're a global chemical company. We're 158 years old this year, and we're situated. So we have what we call 6 world-scale production sites. We call them Verbund sites, and a further 240-ish production sites globally, serving around 85,000 customers across a number of industries. And the picture here on the right-hand side is where BASF sits in the UK. So we span the whole of UK and Ireland, from the very top in terms of Callanish, where we produce high purity omega-3 oils, down to the south coast in Littlehampton, where we have our biologics manufacturing site in terms of fermentation technology, where we're producing nematode worms. So what does BASF do? If you're not aware, in terms of where we span, we've got from our upstream chemicals, our petrochemical business, right through in materials, industrial solutions, surface technologies, nutrition and health, and right through to agricultural solutions. So spanning the whole industry where you'd see in terms of our products. So you don't see our products on a day-to-day basis, but they're in everything you touch, from the minute you get up in the morning to the minute you go to bed. So, and then just a bit more flavor on that, and our products in everyday life, as we say, in terms of, so it's, yeah, the bed you sleep in, the surfactants you use for your shower gel, your food and vitamin ingredients, the roads you drive on, the cars you drive, and pest control. So to see the products that we have, and we try to work out how many products we have at any one time, and it's probably about 10,000 different products in terms of, from those raw materials that are coming out, but in terms of products, in terms of several tens of thousands of products when you put those products blended and out into the marketplace. So you can see a wide variety and the challenges that we have to meet everyday requirements, and also to become net zero. So there's a lot of products in there and a lot of challenges that we have to meet. And a lot of that comes from, as I said, in terms of our Verbund concept. So we're 158 years old, and Verbund, there's no literal translation, but it means in terms of how do we efficiently use the raw materials that we have, and we go back from the past in terms of the naphtha and the natural gas, right through to how do we then use biotechnology to help reduce emissions, help reduce waste. And these production sites then take raw materials in at one end and then utilize the energy, steam, waste materials for other production sites on site to make sure that they're the most efficient that they can be. And as I said, we have in the past used fossil raw materials and those established feedstocks, but now we're looking to how do we replace those with renewable raw materials. So what are the new structures, what are the new business plans that are coming in, where are the new technologies, but also the opportunities and challenges that this brings for us as a global manufacturer, and how do we supply our customers to make sure that they get their products, to make sure they hit their net zero targets and commitments going forward. And I just wanted to put a picture up in terms of how complex this is. So this just gives the everyday problems we have and solved via the highly complex value chains that we have. And this just shows in terms of where we are. We sit with the current raw materials. So we take crude oil and natural gas. And these are the value chains that go through in the supply chains to make the products that we supply into the market. And if you try and then supplement that with biotechnology or other raw materials, you see the challenges that you have to fit in terms of a global marketplace and global production sites. And here's just a quick overview. Again, this is a schematic of our production site in Ludwigshafen. And on the right-hand side, you see naphtha coming in, and then that gets fed into our steam cracker. And that steam cracker is powered by natural gas. And then we split out to make acrylic acid, and that acrylic acid then goes to super absorbers and then to diapers and nappies, or the acrylic acid goes to make dispersions, and those dispersions are used then for adhesive labels. So you see the complexity that we have in terms of these production sites, these massive production sites, to find alternative raw materials on a scale that can meet the global demand, but also in terms of the interaction that each of these plants have and where these products sit just inside BASF, let alone when we go out to our customers and the challenges that we have to meet. And then when we look at that in terms of what we say in terms of where are we as a company in terms of our net zero challenges and our greenhouse gas emissions. So if we go back to 1990 at all our production sites, then we would be producing just over 40 million metric tons of CO2. Bring that forward to 2018, and we've worked in terms of our OPEX, and then look at raw materials, and that greenhouse gas emissions or CO2 emissions was down to nearly 22 million metric tons at 2018. And that at that particular time, we were then re-looking at our targets, what we're going to do. We set targets by 2030 to reduce the 2018 target by 25%, and then get to net zero by 2050. And if we did nothing at all in 2018, as you see the black line here as our business as usual, then our CO2 production would have gone up. Because we're putting new production sites, and we've got a further world-scale production site, which is going to be our second one in China, and that's coming on stream. But in terms of how do we manage that? How do we get to 25% reduction in CO2 by 2030 when we're increasing our production, and then down to zero by 2050? And there's a lot of things that go behind that, and raw materials is one of those. But there are key enablers here to produce low carbon products. One is grey to green. So what are we doing in terms of the energy we're putting into our sites? And in Europe, we've invested just over £2 billion in an offshore wind farm in the Dutch North Sea. And that's bringing green energy to us, but not just wind power. We're also investing in solar to make sure that we have that, and then linking into other fields. So how do you get your energy into your sites, your green energy into your sites, so you can lower your carbon footprint? And then power to steam. So how do we then utilize that to create steam to add energy into our plants without creating more CO2? Utilizing new technologies. So our site in Ludwigshafen is just about to go on stream with a pilot of a electrified steam cracker to first stages and pilot stage. So rather than burning natural gas in terms of to power our steam cracker, we're electrifying the steam cracker and therefore reducing the CO2. And then, as we talked about in terms of those bio-based feedstocks, how do we get bio-based feedstocks into our production sites to make sure that we meet our customers' requirements, what they're doing, whether it's recycled material or in terms of developments, in terms of enzymes, whatever. And then the continuing OPEX that we have at all of our sites to make sure that all of our sites meet the 2030 and 2050 targets we've set ourselves. And this is achieved in terms of on the production side, in terms of what are we doing in terms of the R&D and the chemical production, is in terms of the CO2 reduced breakthrough technologies that we have, whether that's in terms of catalysts for chemical reactions, biocatalysts, replacement of products. So we've continually replacing our products. So we have, when we look at the LCA analysis of our products, in terms we have our challenge products and their continual replacement in terms of towards the greener products. And then completely different chemical reactions and utilizing biotechnology and engineering biology to make sure that we meet those requirements of low CO2 products coming onto the market. And engineering biology or industrial biology delivers these new bio-based chemicals. And we're working actively in our research and also with partners to make sure we bring them forward. But the successful implementation is still limited. To bring these products to market, yes, we can do it in small scale, but how do you scale that up into a world scale production site? When you saw previously in terms of the naphtha going to acrylic acid, how do you then change that? So you've got maybe a 1 million ton steam cracker producing those products. How do you replace that? How do you get enough biomaterials to make sure that you can meet those requirements, and also other input materials that are coming into our sites at any one time? So we are actively working on it, and you can see here in terms of the challenges that that are taken in terms of expanding the industrial biotechnology in these markets. And these are examples of launches and production startups that we've had over the last 10 years. And these are challenges. So we would like to have many more. But as I said, in terms of to go from early stage research to pre-production, to get our customers to test it and then into full-scale production, this takes time. And these are examples of products that we've had, whether it's biopolymers for enhanced oil recovery, or in terms of acrylamide, acrylonitrile to acrylamide via biocatalysis, or new insecticides, or enzymes, new enzymes for laundry detergents. These all take time. They take work with partners, but it's not only just in terms of putting them into our production site. Our customers have to test the products. They have to test it with their customers to make sure that they meet requirements. And also we have to fit in with the regulatory requirements of what's happening in Europe, but also the US and also in Asia. And that's a big driver for it as well. Where is the regulation going to meet the requirements that we need in the market? And do we have the right products to meet those requirements? So just a few examples in terms of how long this has taken. So in terms of, we're a big provider of vitamin B2 into the market, and that continued optimization as an ongoing business. And you see here in terms of starting back in 1980 right through to today, in terms of getting the right products and microbes, in terms of how do you increase the yields and the productivity to meet those requirements, whether it's metabolic engineering, genomic engineering, to go to get the right strains to come through and actually meet the requirements of our customers. So as you see here, this is a nearly a 40-year lifespan of getting through these products and actually continual optimization to make sure that we keep these products on the market, but also in terms of continually optimize to make sure that we're utilizing the latest technology. And I talked about in terms of the bioacrylamide. So the UK was our first site for bioacrylamide. This was a technology which took nearly just over 20 years to come from a university technology where we did university collaboration, and first in terms of, so how do we move from traditional process of acrylonitrile with a copper catalyst in terms of the acrylamide to using a biocatalyst and get bioacrylamide, and actually to go from that very early stage collaboration to lab scale to pre-production to get the investment for production scale, to make sure we meet it. Took, as I said, nearly 20 years to bring to fruition, but it worked, and it was at our site in Bradford where our first world scale production, and as you can see here, one bag of the biocatalyst yielded 100 tons of acrylamide, and that production site is ongoing, and we've expanded that into other bioacrylamide production globally. So it's about in terms of how do you utilize that, and it takes time to bring these products to market. And then a further one is the product we have for an insecticide, and this was in terms of how do you combine chemistry and biotechnology to make the product you want. So actually this started with a fermentation step in the process to make the insecticide, followed by a chemical synthesis. And this was then working with our external partners, but also with bringing interdisciplinary teams together, both biologists, chemists, and physicists, to make sure in terms of understanding that fermentation process in the first step, and then using our chemical synthesis knowledge in the second step to actually bring the product to market. And as you see here, in terms of bringing it to industrial scale in 2017 that we brought to the market. So these are technology, and we see biotechnology, engineering biotechnology, in terms of being at the forefront of what we're doing and how we bring this to market for the future for our products. But we have to understand in terms of what are the process steps, how do you get from point A to point B, but also in terms of what does that mean for our other processes. So if we're relying on the Verbund sites, on the waste materials of one production site to feed as the raw materials for others. If you're putting in a biotechnology step, what is the long-term impact? What is the impact for the ongoing? Are you going to get the same waste materials out that we can utilize? Then if we don't, what is the effect on our production sites? And potentially, does that have a negative impact on our CO2 production coming out? So I just want to leave you with this in terms of, again, the scale that we have, and our production site in Ludwigshafen here, it sits 7 kilometers along the Rhine. It's 2 kilometers its widest point. Everything is integrated. So if you change one process, you affect a number of the other production sites. So the challenge that we have with biotechnology is, how do you introduce it into these large scale sites to become as efficient as you want and reduce your carbon footprint? Thanks very much, Lindsay.
Thanks very much, Darren. That was really great to hear some insights into BASF and to just learn a little bit around the wide range of industries and products that you span, and also how they play a key role in our daily life. And I think we all forget just how important chemistry really is to us. And also, I thought your presentation just showed the complexity of net zero manufacturing for a global company, given the wide range of products that we have as well. And it's great to see how much you've reduced your greenhouse gas from 1990 and how you're continuing to develop that. I also really enjoyed listening a little bit around how your IB is expanding, and also how you're adding additional markets to that, and also for us to understand the journey of your product development and how you get it to market. So thank you very much to you for that. And that brings us to an end for all of our presentations today. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of our presenters. You've been fantastic. I've really learned a lot and really enjoyed all of your presentations. So that takes us on to the Q&A segment of our event. I see some people have added some questions to the Q&A box. I see they're continuing to come in. So if you've got any questions for our panelists, then please do put them in the Q&A box and we're picking them up. I'm now going to pass over to my colleague, Catherine Moore at Innovate UK KTN, and she's going to be leading on the Q&A session. So Catherine, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Oh, I echo your words as well. I've had a brilliant morning listening to all the good stuff that everyone's doing. We have got some questions in the Q&A, and a rather thought-provoking question from Peter Clark, Innovate UK KTN, around a future that if you were in a time machine. Please, panelists, read that question, and I'm going to come back to you because you might need to have a little think about it. So I've got a couple of questions for you, Darren, which I think I'll start with, as you were the last presenter.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go through the Q&A box. There's a few questions. There's some really good ones, actually. So you did touch on this, but if you could just reiterate what BASF's strategy on bio-based chemicals and polymers is, in summary, and is it an area that you see growth in?
The bio-based chemicals, definitely, in terms of, so whether it's utilizing the raw materials or actually generating bio-based materials. So we want to, in terms of how do we reduce our demand on fossil fuel, and how do we replace that with bio-based material? So whether you start from bioethanol or biomethanol, or generate green hydrogen to make your chemicals. So there's a big push to do this and actually reduce the amount of fossil fuels we're using in our production.
Brilliant, thank you. And this kind of, is in keeping with that theme. What would you as a company like to speed up the most in the process of bringing bio-based products to market? And I'm sure this will be across the board for all large companies. What's the one thing that you'd like to speed up the most?
I think it's time to market. I think in terms of how do you reduce your from your early stage in terms of understanding, in terms of getting those processes, actually then scaling it up. So in terms of there's a challenge in terms of, yes, we've got something that we can produce at, say, 1 kilo, 10 kilos, but how do you produce it at multi-tons or thousands of tons? So there's a real challenge and understanding. And actually on the bio-based process, and maybe Tim can talk about this as well, in terms of once you're doing a fermentation process, it's not like producing a necessarily chemical reaction. You may get side reactions. So it's understanding what is going to happen in your fermentation process. How do you scale it up? And it's really in terms of getting from where we are today to produce those high value chemicals or chemicals on a bioproduction site to meet the customer's demand. And actually, you have to have the same quality of product. So the customers want a bio-based product of a product they're using today of the same quality, the same volume, and ideally not a increasing cost either.
Yeah, it's quite the conundrum.
I think it's important to remember as well that it's not chemistry bad, biology good, right?
Yeah.
Biomanufacturing has issues too. So fermentations typically are quite dilute, so you need much bigger reactors often than in chemistry, and that means a lot more energy, right? So to run an aerobic fermentation process takes really big motors, big compressors to provide the air. So there's a lot of energy that goes into that. And so biology needs to improve, or biomanufacturing needs to improve as well. And in having more concentrated product, higher product titers can help drive that. And again, with feedstocks, fermentation uses natural feedstocks, which is good. It's not old carbon from dug up from the ground, but at the same time, there's a limited amount of land to produce those renewable feedstocks. So how we use that, so whether it's first generation, second generation waste materials, I think somebody mentioned the questions about supply chains. So when you're using new materials, do we have the supply chains to get those to centralized manufacturing facilities? So it's important that, as we're looking at moving to renewable, it's not just going to be biology, as somebody mentioned earlier on. There's going to be a mix of chemistry and biology, and that's key to not demonize chemistry in the move towards biology.
Brilliant, thanks, Tim. And following on from that, I know you touched on supply chain, the question that's in the chat box there. Do you feel that the supply chains are adequate? Is there enough? It's the age-old question, isn't there? Is there enough waste as a starting material? And where should this waste be located? Should the plants be next to where these things are grown or processed?
I mean, I think Darren might have more to contribute on this, but from my perspective, the answer is probably no, not yet, because a lot of processes are just moving into this. So supply chains will improve, will develop, and there's a little bit of chicken and egg there, right? So people aren't going to invest money into creating supply chains for these materials until there's a market for them. And markets are going to be slowed down by the limitation of supply chains. But I think the supply chain question is not beyond the ingenuity of people at companies. So I think that will get sorted out. It'll just take time, and it'll be a stepwise process. But we were at a meeting in London yesterday, some people on the panel here, and there was a presentation by a company that are using waste ag material to make a product. And the comment there was they haven't run into any issues yet. Now they're starting small and building up, and I guess their supply chain will grow with them. But the horror stories of, oh, there isn't enough material to supply this market. At the moment, there is material, and at some point we'll get into limitations, I'm sure. But at the moment, at least, that's not necessarily slowing down invention, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to do a shout out actually to Supplant, who are making chocolate from fiber-based sugar. And we had the privilege of sampling the chocolate yesterday in the meeting that Tim was referring to. So if you're interested in an IB company making chocolate, look out for Supplant. Yeah, very nice chocolate it was. Darren, if you've got anything to add on the supply chain.
I echo Tim's comments on the supply chain. At the moment, there's not a limitation, but but if everybody moves, then yes. And actually, we're driven by what our customers want. So our customers are both small SMEs, but also large multinationals. And if they want to move, and how quick they move or want to move, that can limit supply. And where do they want it? So if they say, if a global company says, actually, we want the product in all three regions in the Americas, Europe, and Asia, then that could cause a big issue to start with. We have to build up those supply chains. You can't just switch it on overnight. It takes investment. It takes, where is the regulation going to be? We've got existing assets which if you can't just switch off. So actually, you have to work in. You have to build these supply chains up. And actually, can you use biotechnology and these processes to supplement the current supply chains that you have, and then bring it in slowly? So that's how I see it. It's not going to be one big bang. Actually, where the processes we have are very efficient. To how do you get the new technologies to be as efficient as what we're currently utilizing?
One of the keys there on supply chain as well is a diversity of supply, right? One of the things that a lot of companies, ourselves included, of the past few years with COVID and supply issues have realized that having diversity is huge. We've had virtually, for our fermentation processes, virtually every raw material has been restricted at some point in the past 3 years for various reasons, whether it's climate issues in Texas or plants breaking down, fires. We had one of our suppliers this week had an explosion at a plant in the Midwest, which means that we're going to have restricted supply for a while. So with bio-based, one of the problems has been for both sales of product and supply of raw materials is that a lot of times you're single sourced, and that needs to be improved. And if anybody out there is looking at building a new process, building a new plant, make sure before you invest in that plant that you've got your raw material supply sorted out, and that if you're relying on certain people, that they know what your volumes are going to be and that they are building capacity. So when we look at building more capacity, 3 years out, we're talking to suppliers and saying, look, we're going to need this. Can you provide that? Or do you need to build more capacity? Because that whole chain needs to grow, and it takes time. It's not turning a switch, right? So I think it's doable, but it needs joined up thinking across the whole industry.
Yeah, we're on our way there, I think. Is Stephen still available online? I can only see two videos. Yes, brilliant. Hi there, Stephen.
Still here. Hi.
I've got a question for you, and it's, how do you decide on targets for biosynthesis, and are there restrictions on possibilities? It's a bit of a big question.
Yeah, that's a pretty big question. At the moment, we do a lot of our sort of initial design work with industrial partners, and that's really been facilitated through people like yourself and iBioIC. So engaging with industry, and particularly the chemical industry, over the last couple of years has given us a really nice sort of like end user pool for the targets that we choose and the pathways that we design from that. So yeah, at the moment we work with companies, I guess, that manufacture these small molecules petrochemically currently, and design pathways that way to turn them into a bio-based process.
Brilliant, thank you. And this is open to all of you guys. Are there any examples of fungal microbes in chemical synthesis? Do you use them? Are you aware of any around?
Yeah, I think I can take that one quickly. I'm pretty sure there are. Yeah, fungi are amazing at making quite complex small molecules as well. Their secondary metabolic processes are incredible. The enzymes that make sort of more medicinally relevant, quite complex natural product like medicines, for example, are pretty well characterized in fungi, and I think those pathways have been used in fungal hosts, I think, if I remember, but certainly those fungal pathways have been transferred into laboratory microbes like yeast and bacteria to overproduce these molecules. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm gonna take a question here. This is a really good question. And there are lots of academics in the chat, researchers who are actually looking for industrial partners. And Stephen Boxall asked, are there enough potential industrial partners around? And I'm going to answer this and say absolutely yes. And is there, he also mentions the size. Do we need more SME sized industrial partners? I can just speak from the community that I engage with and the partners that I speak to regularly, and the projects that we build and who's applying for the funding. There are lots of industrial companies out there looking, of all sizes, and especially SMEs, who are looking for partners to for projects. What I would suggest is, I'll touch on this later in my presentation, but there are various events that Innovate UK KTN do run that invite both academics and industrialists to pitch their ideas, or just to pitch what their research is, and that they're actually looking for partners. So they are available, but they may not just be aware of you and what you want. And that goes for both sides. So personally, I think there are, but I'd love to hear from what the rest of the panel thinks. Do you agree with me or not? Stephen, I'll come to you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I absolutely do agree with you. There are certainly we're slightly overwhelmed actually with industry interest in these sort of technologies currently, and that certainly wasn't the case even 3 or 4 years ago, I think. But it really has been incentivized, I think, by maybe the wider sort of climate concerns that are becoming more sort of, I guess, critical right now. There's a growing realization, I think, from the petrochemical industry that they're perhaps going to be taxed on their carbon emissions in the near future, and there's that sort of growing consumer pool or demand for more sustainable products. All those things together, I think, have sort of engaged industry and academia in a way that perhaps hasn't been that close in certainly the last 5 years. And it's like through amazing organizations like yourself, the funding call that iBioIC put out at the beginning of this meeting as well. And specifically the University of Edinburgh, we work quite closely with Edinburgh Innovations, who are the sort of commercial facing subsidiary of the university. And they run these amazing events, maybe a couple of times a year, that are called AIM Days, where we set out sort of, I guess, broad themes, and industry sort of come to Edinburgh with problems that they're having within that theme, be that sort of digital innovation, sustainable biotechnology, green chemistry, perhaps. And academics and industrialists work specifically for a couple of days on industry associated sort of problems, and that often leads to like collaborations, etc. So I think for us, yeah, amazing sort of organizations like yourself and iBioIC, sort of the real engagement that we are sort of incentivized to have with industry through Edinburgh Innovations and the programs that we run here in Edinburgh. And I guess the more wider concerns surrounding the climate and the unsustainability of the chemical industry.
Yeah, I totally agree. So for everyone online who's looking for a partner, just make sure that you do check out iBioIC and Innovate UK KTN's newsletters. Look out for the events. You've just got to you've got to have the exposure, let people know who you are, what you're doing, and you will find your partners. So we haven't got much time left, and I've got two rather large questions that I'm going to end with those. The first one is from Ian Archer, who you'll all know. So he mentions that, Tim, you described an irony in bio-based production to alleviate climate change effects, but some of these bio-based feedstock supply chains may well be disrupted by climate change itself. Do you have any thoughts on that for roughly 20 seconds?
No. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to be adaptable, right? And as I said, biology isn't going to be a solution for everything, but using more of the crops, so using not just the grain, but waste materials, adapting farming systems is going to be critical to provide those feedstocks. But fermentation does give some level of circularity, Some of the products from waste products from fermentation can be reapplied to land as fertilizer. For example, we did that with green biologics. Our waste material from the fermentation was reapplied as a fertilizer to land. So there's some circularity there, which I think there's a lot that we need to develop along those lines to improve where we're going.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to end on Peter Clark's futuristic question. So I want you all to just imagine that you're in your time machine and you've transported yourself to 2050. What percentage of chemicals do you guys think would be produced from virgin fossil carbon versus other feedstocks? So if we're in 2050, what's your feel of where we'll be? So just keen to understand what you think is realistically achievable by 2050. It's literally around the corner, right? And how much we can rely on the current petrochemical supply chain in the long-term future. It's a big question, but what's your gut feel? Darren, I'm going to come to you first.
I would like to see less virgin feedstocks, because actually you can work on how do you recycle the current materials we have to produce the naphtha. So we're currently working on chem cycling on mixed waste plastics and tire pyrolysis to actually supplement our naphtha that's going into our steam cracker. So I think that's where some of this, so you're not looking at virgin naphtha going in on virgin fossil fuels, you're looking at recycled materials. And actually so if you're saying fossil fuels versus bioprocessing, I would say could we get to 50%? Probably 60-40. But if you're looking at how can we recycle materials, so you're not using virgin fossil fuels, I think there's a higher percentage.
Brilliant. Tim, and then I'm going to come to you, Stephen, last.
Yeah, I'm probably going to sidestep the percentage question. I've no idea. But I think it is important, as we look at a barrel of oil today that is used for energy and for materials, I think we're a lot further advanced in solving the energy problem than we are the materials problem. And if we can't solve the oil that's used for materials, we're still going to have to pump it out of the ground, whether we need it for energy or not. And so I think that's where I feel that we need to be spending more focus, more effort, is on materials, on the building block chemicals, polymers, things like that, so that we can stop pumping oil out of the ground, and we're replacing the entire barrel. I'm not a chemist. I'm just a simple biologist. I don't know how we do that necessarily, but I think that is our big challenge for the next 20 years, to get to a point where a large percentage of our chemical industry is not relying on fossil fuels.
Absolutely. Josie, I can see your camera is on. Would you like to contribute to that beefy question?
Yeah, apologies. I thought my camera was on already. I just realised I've been hiding.
Oh, no problem.
But for that one, our viewpoint is that the majority of the carbon we'll need going forward is already above ground. We just need to find a way to use it. It's a huge challenge. I think perhaps people are seeing it as too big a challenge, but the technologies are out there, or starting to be out there, that we can use to convert non-virgin carbon back into usable materials. I think realistically by 2050, I'd like to see that proportion switch, where maybe only 10% of carbon comes from virgin carbon sources. Whether that's achievable or not is a completely different matter, but I think we're moving quite rapidly towards the infrastructure and the technology being in place to make that possible.
Brilliant. Stephen, if you've got any final thoughts, I can see you nodding away there.
Yeah, I'm just nodding to, so along with everyone else. That is a really beefy question.
Yeah, it is.
I'm inclined to agree with Darren, actually, to a degree. I think 100% is completely unrealistic, and that's 2050. People who claim anything earlier, like 2030, I think is hilarious. I think certainly above 50 would be fantastic. Around the half would be amazing. But it's really so difficult to predict. I think, again, it has to come down to what sort of financial incentives or disincentives are there going to be for companies to stop sort of chemical manufacturing from fossil fuels? You know, how is consumer demand going to change for these sort of products in the future? So, you know, there's a product at the moment that's being sold where CO2 is being actively captured to make ethanol for use in alcoholic products, and these products are about 3 times more expensive than conventional spirit bottles, but they're flying off the shelves currently. So I think I think that sort of dynamic of consumer demand for more sustainable products, I think, could have quite a significant impact. But yeah, I think, you know, keep funding us the way that you are at the moment. We keep engaging with industry to develop these sort of processes. Yeah, we could be optimistically looking around 50%, but you know, anything more than that's quite difficult to agree with any sort of degree of realism. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good to me. So Ian Archer has just linked a report there in the chat, which estimates the answer to that question. So go and check that out. So that we still got 81 people online, and we've got 2 more segments left. I'd just like to thank our wonderful speakers again for all their great presentations and for answering the majority of the questions. If you've got any remaining questions, we could just get in touch with me and we can link you up with the speakers to ask them. And we've got something interactive coming on next, and then I've got the graveyard shift. I've got the final presentation slot of the day talking about the Sustainable Bio programme. So I'm going to hand over to my lovely colleague, Ellie, and we are going to do a Mentimeter poll with you guys. So this is where you can help us to help you. So we're just going to do an online poll where we can gather some information from you. So this could go horribly wrong, or it could be wonderful. I'm a positive person, so I'm going for it's going to be good. So if you could all log into Mentimeter, so it's www.menti.com. Those of you that are used to these events have already participated in these previously. That's the little code that you need to put in, and we're going to ask you a few questions around your research areas, around your businesses, what you'd like to see, and we're going to go through each question one by one, and hopefully we'll get the live results in situ, which will be wonderfully exciting, won't it, everyone? So Ellie, if we could see how many people have logged in, and if we could go to the first question, that would be great.
We've got about 30 people on at the moment.
Okay, so we're 76 online. Let's see if we can get that up to 40 maybe before we start. It literally is just logging in, putting that number in, and then you just answer a series of questions online, just a click of a button, and then that will give us some really good information. Let's just start, Ellie, and if you can just join as we're going along, that would be wonderful. So first easy question, where are you based? Ooh, so we've got the majority of people are UK. We've got 1 international, a couple from Europe. So welcome to you guys. 10 from Scotland. Excellent. So we can see that going up and up and up. So that is what I would have expected. So that's good for us to see where you are all dialing in from. So thank you for that. If we could go to question number 2, please. So which stakeholder group matches you best? Where are you sitting in the supply chain? And I know we've got quite a lot of academics online, so I think that first peak is going to be the biggest. Thank you for filling. See, this is the best bit, seeing the numbers come in. So we've got, oh, it's getting up to a bit of a reasonable split. So we've got chemical industry, we've got solution providers, 5 from industrial biotechnology, RTOs 5, other industry 7. Brilliant, thank you. So this is good for me to know. So it means that our reach is across the supply chain, which is perfect. This is exactly what we're all about. So that's good for us to know that. Next question, please, Ellie. So which area of the chemicals industry do you operate in? So we've got agri-chemicals there, bulk chemicals, specialty chemicals, fuels, consumer products and pharmaceuticals. So specialty chemicals is the winner of the day, which I kind of would have expected that. And consumer products is coming up second. So this is going to give me some good insight as to the areas to focus on in the future in terms of bringing people together, workshops, webinars, information, days, etc. So brilliant. Specialty chemicals, the majority of you are working in. Brilliant. Thank you, Ellie. If we could go to the next question, please. So are you aware how biotechnology can be used in your process? Hopefully by the end of this presentation, you are. This is good. The majority of you are. If you are in the no camp, then I'm really glad that you're a part of the webinar and you can reach out to us at Innovate UK KTN afterwards and we'll be able to maybe help you a little bit more. So that's great. Definitely the majority are aware. So what are the barriers to you adopting biotech in your production process? So there'll be lots of barriers, I'm sure. So it's good for us to understand what they are. Yes. How did I know access to funding was going to come up on top? So we've got understanding feedstock supply, understanding technical barriers, access to funding, regulation, understanding market pull, and others. So yes, access to funding is always a big one. And we've just had some really big rounds of funding for biotech, actually. So things are progressing in our community. So there's hope for the future. Brilliant. Do we have any more questions, Ellie? Okay, so do you have any challenges you would like to address collaboratively through open innovation? This is important to know because I'm going to be talking to you about an expression of interest that's currently open to address these innovation challenges. So if you are in the camp of yes, stay tuned for the graveyard shift and I will tell you more about that. Brilliant. That's really good. So almost half of people online do have challenges that they would like to address. Fantastic. So would you like to be consulted by us at Innovate UK KTN and BCB experts to explore your process challenges? Are you looking for that extra help and guidance? So the majority again is saying yes. It'll be interesting for those guys that actually don't want that or don't need that, whether you've had that previously. If you're in the no camp, maybe put it in the chat box. Have you consulted with us previously? Was it helpful? Hopefully it was. Next question, Ellie. Right then, did any of you guys online apply for the Sustainable Bio Programme? Oh, okay. Got 3. Okay, most of you not. Interesting. So I'm not even sure whether you guys even know what that program is. So I'm glad I'm going to be speaking about it next. Right, so 4 yes online. Brilliant. I hope you guys were successful. So what support then would you like from us at BCB and Innovate UK KTN? Is this just an open response, Ellie, this one?
Yep, so you can type your responses in, and this is the last one.
Brilliant. So financial support, so that's in keeping with what we've already seen. So I won't go through all of these now, but they'll all be sent to myself and Ellie. Oh, right, this is good. Connections, partner connections, introductions, collaborations, funding, technical. This is great. This is exactly what we're designed to do and to help you. List of companies looking for collaboration. Absolutely. Events to build partnerships. Yes. Access to collaborations, networking. bioeconomy company, landscapes, networks, brilliant. So this is good. This means that what we're designed to do is actually still what you guys want. So this is excellent. Asset landscape map, brilliant. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to download those answers, and they're going to help me shape the rest of the program that I'm working on with my colleagues in the next couple of years. And this has just actually made me very happy that we're on the right track. So thank you very much for taking part. Is there any more questions?
No, that's the last one.
Last one. Okay, brilliant. Thank you guys for your participation. I am now going to do my presentation, last one of the day. So hang tight. I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. I know it's been a long morning for everybody. Let me just put this into presentation mode. So I'll just quickly introduce myself again. So I think most of you probably are aware of me if you have been coming to these BCB events from the beginning. So my name's Catherine Julia Mott. I am the Knowledge Transfer Manager for Industrial Biotechnology at Innovate UK KTN. Currently, I'm the Project Manager for the Reimagining Materials and Manufacturing Programme from Innovate UK. Of that is, or within that, should I say, is the SAS Bio programme, which I also input into. So key messages today from me are awareness of the SAS Biome programme, a brief overview of the competitions we've had, how you can still get involved, and what the next steps are for the programme. So just a little bit about us at Innovate UK KTN. So we really exist to connect innovators with new partners and new opportunities beyond their existing thinking, accelerating ambitious ideas into real world solutions. So all that good stuff you just put on the Mentimeter, that's exactly what we're about. So that's a good match. So what is the SAS Biome programme? It's not just about competitions. That's the key message I'd like to get across today. It is a 2-year programme, and it does involve lots of non-grant related activities which you can get involved in. They are going to be focusing on community engagement and growth around key thematic areas. And we're going to continue to foster cross-sector collaborations through workshops, webinars, innovation challenges, podcasts and interviews with sector experts. So there's going to be something for everyone within the next couple of years of the programme. There's a link here to the programme page at the main Innovate UK KTN site. So all the information is on there, and you'll get a copy of my slides as well. So just to give you a little bit of background to the programme as to how this came about in the first place. So it really all centres from Innovate UK's 2050 vision, which is a reimagination of materials and manufacturing together. And it's a document focusing on the challenges and the opportunities that lie in front of the UK materials and manufacturing sector in the coming decades. The vision is guided by 3 strategic imperatives. 1 is net zero and resource efficiency, 2 is resilient and responsive, and 3 is technologically advanced and digital. So the Reimagining Materials and Manufacturing Together programme is the delivery mechanism of that vision. So that's how it all ties in. And within this programme, the Reimagining programme, there's 2 sub-programmes. The first one is SAS Biome, and the second one is Reform. I won't be talking about Reform today, but there's lots of information on our website if you'd like to find out more. So SAS Biome is for the bio community, so sustainable bio-based materials and manufacture. And I say the bio community, but it's biosolutions for cross-sectorial working. So not really just for the bio community, but the adoption of. So key themes: bio-based feedstocks, sustainable biotechnology, innovative bio-based products, feedstock recycling, and biomanufacturing. So every single person online will fit into one of those categories. Absolutely. So we all know biomanufacturing is critical to both societal and economic stability, and it offers vast potential for the UK. So if harnessed to its maximum potential, biomanufacturing can play a critical role in achieving the UK government's ambition to reduce all greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. So this is in keeping with the discussion we've just had previously with our panel. So it's also pivotal in helping to secure the UK's future economic prosperity. We all know that. So Innovate UK, BBSRC and EPSRC, all part of UK Research and Innovation, UKRI, have invested up to £14 million in the design and delivery of new and disruptive sustainable biomanufacturing solutions. And this is the first lot of funding for the bio community we've had in a number of years. So it's been, quite an exciting time. So the aim really is to enable the UK to be more globally competitive by supporting development across different industries and sectors, very much focused on cross-sectoral working. So we have had 2 competitions already. So if you aren't aware of these, unfortunately, they are closed now. They were opened last year and in March of this year. And there was a feasibility competition with around £2 million total funding, and CR&D competition, which was around 12 million total funding. These projects, the funding calls, they were oversubscribed by quite a way. So we're hoping that that's going to provide evidence for follow-on funding in the future. The appetite of the community is absolutely huge. And yeah, lots of really good, interesting project coming through. So the projects had to address the challenge of developing innovations in sustainable biomanufacturing processes that could be done by these following ways. So by increasing the use of bio-based feedstocks, by developing alternative bio-based chemical replacements, which is what we've been talking about today, enhancing the sustainability profile of biotech processes, the innovative use and reuse of renewable feedstocks, so all about keeping that carbon above ground, and biotechnology-based manufacturing processes for sustainable and circular products. So the programme highlights, as I've said, these have been closed, and we have been able to analyse the applicants coming in. And there were a really good spread of project partner locations from across the UK. So this includes Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So not all centred in the southeast and in London. So we did have multiple companies, academic institutes and RTOs who were successful in both rounds. The quality of applications is probably the highest we've ever seen. Very, very high. And the engagement of SMEs, which made up the majority of business partners in both competitions. So this goes back to the earlier question we had about, are there enough industrial partners? Our experience and the evidence suggest absolutely yes, there is. So there was engagement with a large number of businesses. So they were the competitions. If you didn't know about them, I'm really sorry about that. You can sign up for our Chem and IB newsletter. It's on our website for all the latest activities and news, and it will let you know when new funding calls are available. So it'll be hot off the press and give you enough time to actually apply for these competitions. So if you didn't know about it, this is how you will know about it in future. What we do have available though, which is open now, so this is your call to action. And we have an open innovation challenge. So this isn't associated with funding, but it will allow you to submit a challenge, and that challenge will then be put out on our website using the innovation challenge format that we have, which will invite solution providers to all come together and help you solve your challenge. So it's a really good way of dealing with that. So if you do have a challenge that you would like to submit, please use the following form. There's the link there to the EOI. So the expression of interest is open right now, and the closing date is the 30th of September. I do envisage that we're going to get quite a lot of applications as we get closer to the date. Please don't leave it to the last minute though, just in case we have any issues uploading them. So yes, that's available for you to apply for right now. We also have a workshop in collaboration with SSPP. This is Smart Sustainable Plastic Packaging. More details will be released in September, the end of September and October, and it is going to be a face-to-face workshop. It's going to be in London. It's going to be in December, and we're going to have a deep dive into sustainable packaging. It's going to be led by my colleague, Dr. Sally Becken, and it's going to have a huge bio aspect to it. So those of you that are interested in sustainable packaging, it would be great to have you along. So this is for everyone. As part of the SASBio program, we're going to have a midterm showcase. It's going to be a really big 3-day event, and it's going to be part of MRE, which is the Materials Research Enterprise, which has been going about 10 years. It's going to be held in the BDC Centre in Islington in London, which is where our head office is. And we're going to have a bio village. It's very exciting. We're going to have exhibitions. We're going to showcase competition winners and case studies. And there will be opportunities for pitch sessions. So this is where you will find your partners for future funding, future projects. Just let people know who you are, what you're interested in, where you want to go, who you're looking for. So there'll be availability for pitches for industry and academics, or solution providers and challenge holders. So more information will be launched soon. It's not until April, but there's a lot of planning coming for this. And anyone bio is going to absolutely want to be attending. So yeah, keep an eye out for the details. Also, what we've got coming up are some thought leadership articles. We're also going to have some cool podcasts with competition winners and sector experts. So it's really all about this community engagement. If you would like to know more about this, you can contact me as the overall project manager, my colleague Dana Helt, who's the lead on SASBiome, and my colleague Rajesh Mystery, who is the lead on the EOI for the challenge, the call to action innovation challenge. And I've whittled through that because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So we are just 3 minutes over time, and we still have 59 people online, which is great. So hopefully you've really enjoyed the session this morning and you've got some good information. You know what's coming, you know what to do to get involved. And I think that's it. Lindsay, would you like to add any closing remarks?
I just want to say thank you to everyone. I know it was a long session this morning and I hope you found it really informative. I certainly did. And thank you again to all of our wonderful speakers. And we really appreciate you speaking today. So that's all from me.
Brilliant. Thank you guys for joining. This is going to be recorded and it will be uploaded to the main website. So if you want to, rewatch the presentations or let people know who you think might be interested, that would be good. And we'll see you in our next events. So have a brilliant rest of the day.